Kayvon Thibodeaux, who's expected to be a top 5 pick in the upcoming NFL draft, recently called out Alabama and essentially said that an education from there is worthless. Also, Brew McCoy is back in the transfer portal, a place that he spent the majority of his college football career. All that and more on today's episode of 4th and 10. 4 college football stories in around 10 minutes. Now, let's go for it. Before we get to today's video, make sure to smash that subscribe button and turn on those notifications if you're new to my channel. If you're watching this video, odds are you're a college football fan, and odds are you aren't subscribed to my channel. So make sure to join the best college football community here on YouTube. Also, if you could drop a like on this video, I would greatly appreciate it as well. It helps the algorithm of the video and helps share with more college football fans. Plus, it only takes a second to do. Alright, we're going to start today's video with Kayvon Thibodeaux, who recently did an interview with Joel Klatt during the 2022 College Football National Championship game. There were a lot of things that were discussed, including him attending Oregon over Alabama, and this is when he said some pretty interesting things.
Listen, you're going to be a superstar in the NFL, but for guys that aren't, it means something that they're a Crimson Tide player.
Can I give you a perspective?
Yes.
If I gave you a fishing pole, would you know how to use it?
No. I don't fish.
You don't fish. School has never been important to me, or a job or a career has never been important until I was done playing football. How would I know how to go get a career or a job? I won't.
I think it's been one of my arguments for a long time that we don't have mandatory financial planning classes in, like for every kid in college football, they should be in classes that teach them how to operate their finances. And
what world do I want to be a part of? If I go to Alabama, I'm going to win national championships, literally. I said, but do I want to be a guy who's known to be a national championship winner? Or do I want to be a guy who's known for being a part of the greatest organization in the world? But a brand like Nike, I mean, for me, it was like, what brand associations do I want to be tied to?
Sure.
You know what I mean? And for me, I already hate the stigmatism of football players being dumb jocks.
Totally.
So now, do you know what the stigmatism of Alabama education? It ain't the West Coast.
No.
You know what I mean? It ain't Harvard.
I hear you.
So for me, I have to look at it and say, I'm only gonna be in college for 3 years. Like I said, but if I would've went to Alabama, I probably would still be there and we wouldn't be sitting here today. 2, I probably wouldn't have graduated yet. And 3, I don't know if my degree would mean anything. And there's no guarantee. I think Oregon might be the only place where you are guaranteed, and it's not, I wouldn't say it's a guarantee, but there is a 90% chance that if you want to, a Nike opportunity is there. And there's a guarantee that if you play football at Oregon, you can work in the corporate Nike world. That's a guarantee. And Phil Knight, I could call him and he'd tell you that today. Well, why? Because he's so invested in the future.
This received a lot of backlash shortly after, including a lot of backlash going towards Joel Klatt. He tweeted this shortly after. No excuses, I should have pushed back. Fact is, University of Alabama education is very good. So a lot of people were upset with Kayvon Thibodeaux calling out Alabama and their education. One of the people that took offense to it is former Alabama quarterback and current ESPN college football analyst Greg McElroy. While on his radio show, he had a few things to say in regards to Kayvon Thibodeaux, and he didn't hold back. I just take real personal offense, man. I genuinely do. I don't care. Don't come. If you think so little of us, don't come. Fine by me, because I know the people that live in the state. I chose Alabama because I love Alabama. If you don't want to see Alabama for the greatness it could potentially provide you, it's on you. You're missing out. Now, this is when Greg McElroy just goes completely off, and I love it. He says he doesn't like the stigma that athletes are dumb jocks, and yet he sounds like a dumb jock. What I don't understand is why he felt the need to cut down Alabama. And as someone who has always taken his academic situation very seriously, I'll just come at him with this. If you'd like to take an IQ test, I'm available. If you'd like to take the Wonderlic test, I'm available. As a proud graduate with multiple degrees from Alabama, I will put my degree up against his any day of the week. McElroy was a finalist for the Rhodes Scholarship back in 2010. Now, for those of you that don't know, the Rhodes Scholarship is a postgraduate award for 102 students to attend the University of Oxford in Oxford, England. I'd like to show him the offers because I'd be willing to bet that Harvard didn't offer him. I think they probably would have taken him, but Harvard did offer me, as did Yale, as did Princeton, as did almost every Ivy League school, along with Duke, Stanford, Northwestern, and Vanderbilt. And I chose Alabama, so put her there, Kayvon Thibodeaux. Meet me at the Wonderlic test. Meet me there, Kayvon. Come get some. Match my 48 or 43, whichever one it is. Now, for those of you that don't know, the Wonderlic test is an IQ test that used to be given at the NFL Combine for NFL draft prospects. A perfect score was a 50, but they no longer do that anymore. So yeah, I'm not exactly certain as to what Kayvon Thibodeaux was trying to prove or what he was trying to say by essentially calling out Alabama's education. I guess he was saying that he has a guaranteed job with Nike if his NFL career doesn't pan out. I think that's what he was going for with this, but I'm fairly certain that there are a lot of players that have an Alabama degree that are doing just fine following their NFL career. So it'll be interesting to follow along with Kayvon Thibodeaux's career. If the NFL doesn't pan out, well, again, I guess we'll just have to wait and see if he has that guaranteed job at Nike that his Oregon degree guaranteed him. Our next topic is Brew McCoy, who is entering the transfer portal and leaving USC yet again. Now, for those of you that don't know the entire backstory to Brew McCoy and how crazy his journey has been, I released a video, I think last summer, or actually I guess the summer of 2020, I believe, that pretty much went over his entire journey and how crazy it's been. So if you want a more in-depth video on his entire process, go and check out that video. But I'll be giving kind of like a brief SparkNotes version for today's video. So Brew McCoy attended Santa Ana Mater Dei High School and was viewed as one of the top prospects to come out of Southern California when he committed to USC all the way back in January of 2019. He was a 5-star recruit and was considered one of the top recruits in all of the nation. But just a few weeks after he committed to USC, offensive coordinator Cliff Kingsbury left for the NFL, and Brew McCoy decided to transfer to Texas. He spent the spring in Austin, but he opted to leave and recommit to USC. A mysterious illness kept Brew McCoy out for almost the entire 2019 season, but in 2020, he returned to full health. He played a limited amount, only having 21 catches for 200 yards and 2 touchdowns. It looked like 2021 was going to be his season in which he finally got a full opportunity, but he was arrested in July. He was arrested on July 24th on suspicion of felony intimate partner violence. McCoy was removed from USC's roster soon after, as both the Los Angeles District Attorney's Office and USC's Office for Equity, Equal Opportunity, and Title IX continued to investigate the incident. The District Attorney's Office declined to file charges against McCoy in August, citing insufficient evidence. But USC continued to investigate, and Brew McCoy ultimately never played another snap for USC. During the course of the season, Clay Helton and Dante Williams declined numerous times to address McCoy's status during the ongoing investigation. So at this point, he's going to leave USC yet again and enter the transfer portal. I'm not quite certain where exactly he's going to transfer, and I'm not quite certain if he's ever going to take another snap at the collegiate level again. He might go to a team where he'll be given an opportunity to play, but based on how his career has panned out and based on the ongoing investigation, we very well could have seen the last snap for Brew McCoy. I mean, overall, this is just one of the craziest stories we've seen in college football over the last few years. Again, this was a guy that was one of the top recruits coming out of high school. He committed to USC, then committed to Texas, then committed back to USC, had this whole investigation go down, and now he's back in the transfer portal. Overall, just a really sad story all the way around. We'll move on now to some of the latest news in regards to the transfer portal, and the first I want to talk about is Caleb Williams, who still hasn't decided on his next school. Last week, Caleb Williams was spotted at an LA Rams game and was spotted at a Lakers game later that night, so he's clearly out in Los Angeles taking a visit at some programs. Now, many people, myself included, expect him to transfer to USC and rejoin Lincoln Riley, but Caleb Williams also reportedly visited UCLA, and I guess he's currently deciding between the two programs. Now, this is a little bit interesting to me, considering that Dorian Thompson-Robinson just announced that he'd be returning to UCLA for his final season. Now, I don't think DTR would return to UCLA if he had any idea that Caleb Williams would potentially be coming. Again, I think there's probably a 90% chance that Caleb Williams ultimately ends up at USC, but it certainly is a little bit interesting that he's dragging out this decision for as long as he has. I thought by now we for sure would have seen him announce that he's going to USC. Now, of course, he could announce that this weekend and everything's all good, but I definitely think Caleb Williams is a name to keep an eye on, especially considering there's so many other schools that he could potentially wind up at. Speaking of Caleb Williams, one of the reasons he likely will end up at USC is because Jackson Dart is no longer there. Jackson Dart, who was the starting quarterback with the Trojans to end the season, entered the transfer portal last week. Recently, it was announced that he was visiting Ole Miss, and he'll take a trip to Oklahoma this weekend and visit the Sooners. This is certainly interesting to follow as well because Oklahoma already has a quarterback in Dillon Gabriel. Not to mention, if Caleb Williams just decides to shock the world and return to Oklahoma, then there are just going to be too many quarterbacks there. As I mentioned in the last Caleb Williams video I did, if he ends up going back to Oklahoma, I think we'll see Dillon Gabriel transfer yet again. But it certainly is interesting seeing Jackson Dart taking a visit to Oklahoma, again, when Dillon Gabriel's already there. I don't know all the schools that Jackson Dart has taken a visit to, but Ole Miss would certainly be an exciting one. It seems like this offseason, Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss have struck out on essentially every transfer quarterback imaginable. They were attached to Spencer Rattler, Dillon Gabriel, Cameron Ward, and a few other names that ultimately ended up at different programs. I think Jackson Dart going to Ole Miss would be a lot of fun to see, and I think he would do really well with Lane Kiffin. I mean, we need to remember that Jackson Dart was one of the top quarterback recruits coming out of high school, so Ole Miss would be getting a great one if that's where he decides to transfer. I think it'd be a perfect fit, but we'll just have to see where he ends up. So, what are your thoughts on all the topics I discussed today? Let me know in the comments down below. If you haven't done so yet, now is the perfect time to smash that subscribe button and join the best college football community here on YouTube. If you love college football, then this is definitely the place for you. Oh, and make sure to drop a like on this video as well, as it helps share the video with more college football fans and really helps the algorithm. As always, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you all in my next video.